I did.
Doesn't
I
matter.
got so wrapped up in you.
God.
I can say it again in a second, but I won't. You all look beautiful, though. This is a beautiful class.
Aren't they lovely?
It's all women. This is great. Oh, my brother Craig, who is
Craig is
actually doing something else but listening, apparently.
Mm-hmm. I want you to know your brother Craig in the, I don't know if you watched it or not, our class on challenges, changes, and decisions. He told us about something that he said he never even told you.
Wow. Well, if he wants to tell me, he'll tell me, or I'll go back and look at it. I hope he told you something about himself,
He
not
did.
about me, that
No,
he's
he
never
did.
told anyone. Okay, good.
It was wonderful.
Good. He's a
He
great
said
guy.
it's not a secret, but he just never had a conversation with you about it.
Oh, that he's really gay? I've known that his whole life.
We all call you Jimmy now.
Yeah, right.
Don't. It's Dr. Jimmy, by the way. Yes.
Doc Jimmy.
Dr. Jimmy. Okay, can we remove the card? Mute.
Muted, Dr. James, you're muted.
There we go. Thank you.
I said I hope you all took a picture of that because those are the correct 5 steps of treatment.
Yeah.
Don't get derailed by identification. We don't identify anymore.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
You mean we don't unify?
No.
You said it backwards, but
Yes.
That's right. Okay, so tonight is about spiritual mind healing, which Diane, I remember you said in our first class when we went through the Declaration of Principles, you said you were really surprised you didn't know anything that we had anything to do with healing. We have everything to do with healing. The basis, just to review, because I know Tiffany talked to you about this in the first class, it all goes back to a little guy named Phineas Quimby, who had studied Anton Mesmer, who James mentioned a little bit ago. And he dived headfirst into mind, body, and the power of the mind for healing. And he was in the 1800s. And by the time of his death, he'd probably healed more people than anybody who's ever been in his field by using spiritual power. And his teachings were the forerunner, the foundation of the whole metaphysical New Thought movement that came after him. He said that mind is fluid and matter is mind in form. And that both of those things are just two sides of one thing. And the two of them together constitute the matter of spirit. Just like Einstein said later on that energy and mass are equal. They're identical and interchangeable, and they're not two different things. So he said that all disease is mind taking objective form, and that corresponds to what we now call subjective or unconscious image. But he did say, which we believe, that back of these is a wisdom, a spirit, a divine intelligence, and a spiritual man. So Quimby, we have to thank for a lot of what we have right now. So I want to jump into the reading that we had. And first, I want to go to the readings from Living the Science of Mind. The first essay we read was the one, How Old Are You?
Suzanne, hold on one second. Can we just go back for a second?
Sure.
Because those were really heady quotes from the book, and I don't think a lot of people even understood them because
No.
I didn't, and I read them thousands of times. So you were right, Phineas Quimby, and you were right to bring up Mesmer. But I think it's important to break down what happened, how healing became a part of this. So Anton Mesmer, you all remember the word mesmerizing? Mesmerize. So Anton Mesmer was a hypnotist, and he developed the form of hypnotism called mesmerizing. And what he realized was that there was a part of your mind that listened and that could be taken over almost. There was a part of your mind that was that was subject to what it was hearing. Like, you hear soft music and it makes you calm, or you hear somebody's fighting and you get agitated. So there's a part of your mind that listens, subjective. That's your subject. It's subject to whatever's going on. And so Mesmer was all about that. And I happen to know, because I directed a play about Anton Mesmer, that he was more interested in, well, unfortunately, he got in trouble because he liked to hypnotize women. Not a good idea. And, there you go. But he believed that there was also a fluid in the body, and his whole thing was it ended up being a little wacko, but he still brought us the subjective mind, which Phineas Quinby, as one of his students, took and said to himself, if there's a part of my mind that can listen to what I'm saying and physically result in whatever I'm saying, I should be able to heal myself. And that's where this all started. That's where this became a healing philosophy, that the subjective mind, the mind that is subject to whatever you put into it, will demonstrate in your body, will heal your body. And the fascinating thing is that one of his greatest clients was Mary Baker Eddy, the founder of Christian Science. And what Mary Baker Eddy did was she went in there, studied everything he was teaching. She was healed. She was very sick.
And
She
he
came
healed-
to him and he healed her, yes. And then she went off and wrote Science and Health, pretending she'd never met Phineas Quimby, and created her own religion. Tiffany and I don't have a good time with Mary Baker Eddy. Yeah, we're like so over her and her plagiarism of Quimby. But ultimately, that's what started, because Mary Baker Eddy also then taught Ernest Holmes and Emma Curtis Hopkins and the Fillmores. So the whole New Thought movement came out of Anton Mesmer, kind of. We can't disrespect that he came up with the subjective
No.
mind. And Phineas Quinby, who basically said, there is a part of you that will listen. And when it listens and when it hears and when it believes, things will transform. So that's really what all of those quotes were about just then. But then it gets very heady into the mind and matter and particles and all of that stuff. But the important part of this first year is that you come to understand that your mind, even though there are not two minds, there is your objective mind, your conscious mind, and your subjective mind. And your subjective mind is the repository of all the things you are hearing, thinking, believing, everything you are subject to. And that's what's creating your life. So, of course, you can use it to heal your body, as I have, as you all have, I'm sure, at some point. Did you ever have a cold come on, but you're really busy that week? You don't have time for a cold. So the cold hangs on and waits until you have some time to get sick. And then you get sick because you stop realizing that, oh, I'm okay now, I can get sick, and you get sick. That's just how powerful the mind is.
Yeah.
Okay, Suzanne.
All right. So I wanted to start off with from Living the Science of Mind. There's an essay called How Old Are You? And maybe I pulled that one up first because, first of all, I think a lot of what he talks about in this essay is what I would call health. And the title may have appealed to me since I had a birthday last week. I don't know. But he talks about the fact that every cell of our body is replaced every 14 months. So essentially, no matter what the year is that we put on our birthday card, it seems pretty funny that all of us are only a year and a half old. So what happens? If it's true that, in a sense, that our body never grows old, we need to ask ourselves what produces that aging process. And we go right back to this, because we tend to think of ourselves as separate from source. And so we start doing this thing where we store up, if you want to call them burdens, whatever, of care and worry and whatever. And we take on that kind of responsibility in this relative world that we're living in, and we're really not equipped to handle it. But with our right of choice, we're permitted to store up all those things in our minds, which tend to perpetuate our discomfort. And he says it's self-evident that God's mind would be capable of running this factory of yours, which it miraculously created, which we call our bodies, if we would not throw wrenches of fear and doubt into the machinery and overload the communication and transportation system with burdens of grief and worry. And he recommends that we trust what he calls the divine architect that created this perfection and is capable of operating it perfectly. It doesn't mean that we have to recapture that physical body that we had years ago, but we need to recognize the youth of our physical body, because youth is in every muscle and fiber of our being, of who we are. People don't grow old when they're busy with the pleasures of living and the enjoyment and expectation and happiness and the thought of more to come, and all that is with us. That is who we are. And we have to get rid of all this garbage.
So, Suzanne, are you saying that the body never grows old?
I'm saying that and the next quote that I wrote from him exactly says this. He says, years wrinkle the skin, but to give up enthusiasm wrinkles the soul. You are as young as your faith, as old as your doubt, as young as your confidence, as old as your fear, as young as your hope, which we don't like that word too much, but as young as our expectation, we could say, and as old as your despair.
Right, but does the body age?
The body does change and age, yes, but a lot of it comes from our mental attitude. I know people who, we will look at Nancy Berggren, for example, who is not 20 anymore and is one of the youngest people I know.
Right, but scientifically speaking.
Scientifically speaking, yes, there are changes in the body.
So how do we account for those? If the mind is purely in charge, how do we account for the fact that Nancy no longer is 20, even though she acts like it? Because that's the stuff we got to get clear about.
Okay. Well,
And that's for everybody, by the way. That's not just for Suzanne. That's for everybody. I mean, one of the things about classes that I find so exciting is when everybody contributes. So feel free to tell us what you think about these questions, because these are the important questions. Yeah, Donya?
I'm just a little confused because you're talking about an essay in the Living the Science of Mind, but
Yeah.
that wasn't in the homework. I didn't.
It was, and I gave the specific titles of the essays in the homework. Tiffany sent it out last week during class.
Did you all read this one? Everybody else read it? Yes.
I
Might be just
must
you,
have
Donya.
gotten the misunderstanding of the.
That's okay. Then just listen, because that's
Okay.
all you got to do.
I'm
Yep,
feeling
just
a little
listen.
lost, that's all. Okay.
That's okay. Do you know how many people show up to advanced consciousness? They haven't read the chapters at all.
Yeah.
I know who they are because they're not talking. It's not you, Tiffany. So yeah, Nancy.
I came up with this. I was looking for it. Didn't meaning to be rude, but like 2 weeks ago, this thing popped through me about age.
Mhm.
And I can't find it, but it was like, if there is no time in spirit, it started there. If there is no time in spirit, I can't pick up the second part of it, but it was that we don't age, that we can't age. But I can't put the pieces together. But I have
No,
it.
no. Nancy, that's you have the exact answer. That's the exact answer. Here's the deal. We don't age. Consciousness does not
Not
age.
No.
Consciousness will stay vibrant, creative, energized. These bodies were not meant, they were not created. When Suzanne read about the divine architect, we don't even believe that anymore. There's no divine architect. There was no divine architect. It was energy itself, life itself, creating out of itself. And so it's meant to grow old, and move on. So we've been so fixated as a community, as a new thought community of I can stay young with my mind. I can heal everything with my mind. Well, in fact, you can heal with your mind? Can you stay young forever? You already are young forever in consciousness. Can you keep your body? Can you keep your body at 20 until the day you die? I haven't seen anybody do it. I'm 66 and most people think I'm 40. So I think I'm doing a great job, but it's because I believe my body is always going to support me. Period. End of sentence. That's what I'm here to do. But it's going to get older. I'm going to have wrinkles unless they run out of Botox. I should be fine. I'm going to have, things are going to change in my body, but that's okay. We have to start being okay with the process of life because we are not these bodies. We're consciousness inhabiting these bodies. And that's, Nancy, if I'm correct, that's what you're trying to say. If
Yeah.
there's no time and on the collapsed field of infinite time, I'm not my body. So I'm always at the most profoundly
Youthful.
energetic point of knowing who I am. Does that make sense, everybody? And it's important for us to get that because we could drive ourselves crazy trying to keep ourselves young and, trying to get rid of the wrinkles and and we've seen people trying to do that over and over and over again. And after a while, there's just so much skin you can pull. I mean, really.
It starts to look pretty weird.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
There's the very last, well, not three on page 258, the third paragraph on the bottom, and it's one of those ridiculous sentences, but the end of it says if all this bad stuff doesn't happen, we must discover some wellspring of life within us, some divine inward assurance that we are all on the pathway of an eternal unfoldment. We're all on the pathway of an eternal unfoldment. So this isn't the end of it.
No.
It's just a chapter in the book, I guess.
Nancy, I hope I'm as vibrant and I don't hope. I will be as vibrant and youthful as you at your age, although you're not that far from me.
I'm pretty far. Some days more than others, but not today.
So, Suzanne, that's what I was saying when I was talking to you about these books. We can't teach a class just on these quotes. We've got to take those quotes and make sense out of them for today. Because back in the day, they were very poetic and beautiful, right, Nance? We all taught them 20 years ago, and we taught them as though they were accurate. And maybe they were accurate in 1980. But in 2021, there is no divine architect, and there is no I can stay young forever idea. We got to get real about this scientifically and philosophically.
Okay.
Hit it. Give us the next one that we
Hit
can
it.
tear apart.
Okay. From his essay, Healing is a Revelation, he tells the story, I don't know if you all read it or not, about a beautiful diamond that's lying at the bottom of a trunk that's full of rubbish on top. And if you can get to it, it's yours, and you use whatever method to get it out. And that's where he talks about what we do to uncover the perfect man, removing every obstruction of thought that denies spirit's presence as us. It's treatment to reveal the perfection. And that's what we do, I believe. He says there is but one healer, and that is the spirit of truth.
What does that
No
mean?
opposition to the law of good.
Suzanne, what does that mean, the spirit of truth? There's but one. Read that quote again.
There is but one healer. This is the spirit of truth.
What does that mean to you?
It means there's no opposition, nothing opposite to truth, to the law of good.
But what's the one? Yeah, Christy?
So there really is only truth, and because there's only truth,
Right,
there is nothing to be healed necessarily, correct?
right.
Correct.
And in that we know the truth, and all of the other sort of blends away, sifts away. Okay.
don't you?
So,
And that's kind of what I was saying about forgiveness last week. There's nothing to forgive the other person. It's only to disabuse yourself of the judgment of the situation or of the other person. Forgiveness is really the willingness to disabuse yourself, because you don't forgive another person for their actions. It has nothing to do with them, because you can't. It's the same thing as that's how I hear that, the same kind of concept, that it can't go back on itself.
and I'm glad you brought that up because um, I forgiveness. There's no process of forgiveness. We don't teach a process of forgiveness. We don't teach that you need to ruminate over what you need to forgive. There's no that is not what we teach. We teach that forgiveness is instantaneous the minute you know the truth. And when you look at Abraham Hicks, what they teach, there's so much New Thought stuff out there, and I respect Esther Hicks, and I respect what she says. She has some amazing truths to teach, but she does believe in this ladder of process, that you only move from here to here to here. I don't believe that. And I don't believe we need to indulge in all the things that were wrong with us in order to know the truth about us. And so, I know you guys all got into a discussion last week and talked about the process of forgiveness. David Kessler, is an amazing teacher on grief and forgiveness, he and I had a wonderful conversation about this, and we both agreed. We were like, yeah, no, one of the problems that people get into is thinking they have to process everything, so they never get to the other end of it because they're too busy processing it. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't process when you have to, but it's not what we do or what we teach. As a practitioner, you know the truth. You listen, you hear, but our job is to route it immediately to the truth, immediately to the truth. So, to your point, Donia, and I know you and I talked about that. Yeah, good. So the reason why I said that, Suzanne, was because that quote that you just read um, kind of indicates that there is a divine healer, and it almost sounds dualistic to me
No,
when
the
I hear
next
it.
quote is, "We must forever rid ourselves of the idea that it is the personal man who does the healing." We do not. We know that God is all there is, and we have to know that God exists right where the need is, not in the form of the need,
Well,
but
but when
in the
you
function.
say God exists where the need is,
God
it still
exists in
sounds
everything.
it still sounds dualistic. We got to find a better way to talk about that because it still all sounds very old Christian dualistic. So read that quote again.
Which one? We
The
must
personal.
forgive ourselves of the idea that it is the personal man who does the healing.
Okay, now make sense out of that for today.
We do not heal. It is
Okay,
not,
explain. We just started the class saying we're a healing philosophy.
we are healing. What is treatment? Every time we do a treatment is a healing tool. If we approach to move energy for a specific purpose, we are healing whatever that purpose is.
Well, are
It's
we healing
energy.
or are we
Well,
creating?
huh?
Are we healing or are we revealing
We are revealing.
the truth? Right.
So I should start the class by saying spiritual mind healing, as it's referred to in Christian Science. However, at Global Truth Center, what we talk about is revealing,
Yeah,
because that's
no one
exactly
uses,
what we do.
yeah, no one says spiritual mind healing anymore, unless
Well,
it's Christian Science, but they probably still do.
well, I was asked to treat a book, and it's in the book. It's called Spiritual Mind Healing, which is why I wrote it down that way, because that was the heading of the section that started off what I asked them to read.
Right. So, and by the way, the guys, this is also Suzanne's class tonight too, because when she teaches again, I want her to be even better at it, as good as she is. So just because it says spiritual mind healing in the book doesn't mean you have to use it. You're the one that gets to say, this is not what we do. This is the time. That's what we need to do with these books. We need to rip them apart and say, here's the essence of truth in this. The rest of it, it's antiquated. Doesn't really, it's not really what we do anymore. That's what's important. And that's what we need to be teaching, especially first year students who are going to have to turn it all upside down again when they hear it coming from me.
The personal
So,
man does not heal consciousness.
who is the personal man?
Me sitting here giving a treatment to somebody. It is not
Okay.
it is not
And
me, the personal relative me. It is my consciousness.
there's no such thing as the relative you, right?
That's what
No
may
such.
be perceived as the
No, no,
person
no.
that I am. It is my consciousness.
Yes, and that's the personal man. The personal
Okay,
man
so
is consciousness.
so you object to his use of that term.
Oh my God, he's still antiquated in the Christian ways of saying the personal man is the worms of the dust. It's God that does everything. That's the subtlety we have to pull these books apart with, because Sharon is the personal man, and she is the personal expression of the divine, the entire ocean in a drop. And she does reveal the truth. And in revealing the truth, she does heal the things in her life that need to be healed.
Okay,
That's the truth.
how about this one? He must not only know that God is all there is, but he must know that God exists right where the need is, not in the form of the need, but in the form of an answer to the need.
And I would say God does not exist. Well, first of all, God exists everywhere.
Yeah,
But why would
exactly.
we want God to exist where the need is? God exists in the consciousness of the person knowing the truth about the need, not the need itself. We don't even
Okay,
deal with the
so-
need.
All right, I understand, and I can do that if I rewrite
That's what your
these
job
quotes.
is. That's what your job is as the teacher, to find the quotes and then make sense of them here. And anybody can jump in to say, with Diane, you looked like you were like, what?
Yeah, no, I'm really enjoying your well, I don't know if I can call it an interpretation. Uh,
This is an interpretation. I can give you an interpretive dance.
so I guess I should call it your truth, the truth that you are sharing with us. Because it's true for me. When I read this, it's a lot of language and concepts, and it's very dense.
Yeah.
And so where is the kernel of truth that I can grasp and manifest in my own life? That's my impression of what this class should be about.
Breaking it down, it's called.
Well, that's the whole series, but
Yeah.
this is living the science of
Right.
mind.
How do you use it?
That's
And
it.
to tell Sharon, I'm using Sharon because I used her before, to tell Sharon she's not the healer, it's not done there, that there's some energy that heals where the need is, takes it away from me. It doesn't show me how to use it. It's just I might as well go back to Christian school and learn that Jesus does it all for me.
So why are we reading this book then? If the notions in it, you seem to be, you know,
Adversarial with,
yeah,
shall we say?
yeah. And that was the same question I had with the Troward book. I mean, why are we reading this?
Well, you weren't supposed to read the Troward book. Tiffany's going to laugh now, but I was so busy I didn't pay attention to that class. Also because Liza's such a, I mean, I don't even pay attention to Liza. I just assume she's doing it, But she misunderstood me when I said the creative power in the individual, the creative process in the individual. I meant her to explain the creative process in the individual over 8 weeks, not take the book, The Creative Process in the Individual, and freak everybody out with Troward.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she
That's
understands
why
that now, and
I
that will be
loved it,
fixed
though.
next year. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how
What?
does
What did you say?
I loved it though. I loved I know I'm in the minority there, but I really enjoyed going through that book personally.
But see, there are minds like Swan who will love Troward and love Emerson and love. You're gonna
well,
love my.
let's slow down. Well,
Yeah, let's slow down before we pick up Emerson. So anyway, yeah, you didn't need to read all of this. You just needed to, and you are doing this, and Suzanne has done this. I've watched a number of the classes. It's not about reading the book and figuring out the book. It's Suzanne's job, and she has done it, to read the book and make sense out of it for you and to bring it to you in a usable fashion. So, and one of your jobs as students, just so you know, and certainly in my classroom, it's very much like this, your job is to question everything, not be fed it, especially in antiquated ways, but to question everything. How does that work for me? How does that pertain to me? If you're telling me I'm not a healer, what's doing the healing? And if you're telling me something outside of myself is doing the healing, then this is dualistic. And if you're telling me that something outside of myself is actually in me, now you're just confusing me. So that's the kind of students we need to be, and teachers, because teacher-student constantly changes as you're in a class like this, and should.
Yeah.
The days of lectures are well gone.
Okay, one thing I want to say, and I want to clarify, because this is something that came up earlier in our first class when we were talking about the presence of healing as part of our philosophy, is that in the practice of science of mind, quote, healing, we don't deny that people are ill, nor do we minimize the need for sanitation or medical help or surgical help. The body has to be cared for, but we have to understand body, mind, spirit relationship. It's cooperation, because we are spirit, but we have it's spirit, mind, body. So I hope that part of it is clear. So what do we do? What do we treat for when we're facing the manifestation of an illness? Did anybody do the reading? it's we don't treat this way. We treat in our consciousness. We treat to relieve the mind of fear or doubt or uncertainty, to reveal the truth of that person as God in all its perfection. It's always done with love, but filled with a deep conviction and desire. The feeling, the love has to be there. And we know that the law is impersonal, but nothing about our practice is cold and unfeeling. When we meet with someone, or when we're treating for ourselves, I mean, it's all our consciousness. We're not trying to influence the other person or touch that other person. It is all in our consciousness, knowing the truth about who that person is. I mean, one quote that I saw that he had in the Beverly Hills lectures that I really liked. He said, "We have to be knowers." No, K-N-O-W. We have to be knowers, and we have to stand firm in that which we know, no matter what presents itself to us. And that, I believe, is just as true now as it was in 1955 or whatever it was that he wrote that. And he also said, "He who does the best healing is he who sees nothing to be done." He sees the perfection.
So
of that.
Suzanne, here's a great question.
Yeah.
Read that quote again.
Which one? The last one?
Yeah.
He who does the best healing is he who sees nothing to be done.
Marilyn, how will you use that in your life, that quote? How does that relate to you? Read it again, Suzanne.
He who does the best healing is he who sees nothing to be done.
Well, I kind of relate everything, particularly on the subject of healing, to when I got my cancer diagnosis, coming up on 5 years ago. I call it D-Day. And it was a shock. I had a couple of minor symptoms, and farthest thing from my imagination that it could be cancer. So when I came home, freaking out, disbelieving and all that, I called Maureen, Dr. Maureen, and she did a treatment for me, which grounded me in the truth that right here, right now, in this moment, I'm fine, I'm healthy, I'm loved, I'm safe. That's all I know. And anything other than that is futurizing, and I don't know what's going to happen, so don't go there. That stayed with me for about a minute and a half before I started, the fear started to take hold again. And then I've told this story before, but probably not everybody's heard it. I was supposed to go that afternoon to Europe. I was in charge of a group of 160 people in Amsterdam, so I had a flight at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which the doctor suggested I not go on vacation. So that was my first, thought, and the doctor told me, what was going on. That, oh my God, how do I manage this? And fortunately, I've got a wonderful VP who I called, and he said, "Don't worry, I'm on it. We'll take care of it." So that was resolved. So after the call with Maureen, and I felt better, but then the fear was creeping in again. I started going up the stairs, and I walked up about 4 steps, and I'm in fear. And then on the 5th step, it occurred to me that I don't have to finish packing, and I don't like to pack. I love to travel, but I don't like to pack. And so on that 5th step, I felt euphoria. I felt joyful. I felt free. I felt, oh yes, I don't have to finish packing. And then on the 6th step, I started to get that fear again. It started to creep in, and that was a pivotal moment in my life when it's like, wait, do I choose the feeling I had on step 5, or do I want to, I liked that feeling.
Did you step back a step?
I may have. I may have. And so that was a really defining moment, and I got through stage 4 cancer, you know, miraculously. And I didn't do treatment. I didn't, um, but I just knew the truth. And
Therefore you did treatment.
yeah, I guess I just did it the formal way. But I started to think about how I could make it fun. And so my surgeon, her name was Allison Axtell, and so on the morning of my surgery for a hysterectomy, I put a big heart on my abdomen, and I wrote in lipstick, "I love my A team." And I imagined her, when she pulled the gown up, whatever, the surgical gown up, that she probably smiled. And then the nurses and whatnot, every time I went for chemo treatments, I took them a box of See's candy and flowers and love notes. And I just decided I was going to be their favorite patient because they had a tough job.
I'm sure you were.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I never got sick from chemo. Uh,
Ugh.
and I teased them about it. I said, this is sugar water, right? And they kind of said, no, it's, lots of people get, really, really sick. After the first 6 months of chemo, the doctor told me it wasn't working. After I'd lost my hair, and something of it, wasn't the right combination, whatever. So they put me on something else, and that one did work. But I just wasn't going to let it I don't know. I don't want to.
Okay, but you've proven the point I want to make here. And by the way, I love that you decided you weren't going to get nauseous, so you didn't, but you lost all your hair. I decided I would not lose my hair, and I didn't, and I got really nauseous, and I was sick as a dog. But the doctor said to me one day when I was in there, and she was like, "I don't know how you're keeping your hair," because I was taking cisplatin, which was the harshest chemo when I had stage 4 cancer. And she said, "No one doesn't lose their hair on cisplatin." And I said, "You don't know my mind." I said, I made it very clear to myself that my hair will not leave my head. I will take every other indignity. And she looked at me and she went, "And that was your mistake. You didn't pay any attention to your nausea, did you?" And she was right. She was absolutely right. I said, "Yeah, I kind of knew I was going to get sick from it." And I did really bad. Remember Nancy, Suzanne? Oh my God, sick as a dog. So the quote is, "He who is the best healer is though he's he who knows there is nothing to heal, who doesn't see it." Well, that's not what that means. It doesn't mean that you don't see what's going on. And in fact, that quote is right, profoundly right on the absolute side of life, and profoundly wrong on the relative side of life. And as we now know, there's no such thing as relative and absolute. It's all one absolute at different levels. So where is it wrong? It's wrong because it on the surface, it gets us to believe that we don't need to look at the stuff that's going on in our lives, that we don't need to actually identify, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, oh, I have cancer. And you proved my point because you didn't turn entirely away and say, I'm fine, and just let come what may. You went to chemo, you did the operation, you had the hysterectomy, you did everything you needed to do in this world of form, but on the other hand, knew, I will get through this, I will be fine. That's what we have to teach when it comes to how we heal our bodies. Not that it's not there. I am right now counseling a boy, an 18-year-old boy with an inoperable brain tumor that they've said they've stepped away from him. They say there's nothing we can do. Live your life. And I am working with him specifically to know that he can take care of that tumor all in and of himself. He doesn't need his team to do it. I can only say that now because there's no team. And I had a counseling session with him today. And one of the things he said to me was, "Do you know how happy I am that there's nothing they can do? I don't want all those things that they said they were going to try to do. One of them was going to leave him a cripple. One was going to leave him with no memory. All these things." He's like, "I'm kind of glad that there's nothing they can do." I said, "That's right. Now it's up to you and me." And he just laughed. He went, "Yeah, I believe that." His belief is what's going to change his forward trajectory. So that's what that quote means.
Well,
And
that's how
Suzanne,
I meant it.
but
That's
you
the way
didn't say it. I know that's how you took it, but you have to explain it that way to us so that we take it that way.
But you didn't ask me to explain it. You asked me to read it, and then you started
Oh no,
talking
I'm
about it, and I understand that. But
no, I'm
that's
talking about how you explained it at first. As a profoundly, it's like one of your favorite quotes, and I get that.
it is,
But
because that's as a practitioner dealing with someone, I have to see the perfection of them.
right, but yes, and Christy knows this in Prac 1, you have to be willing to also see the imperfection.
Of course.
But
We
you
don't
didn't say
deny.
that, which is why I'm saying it.
We don't deny that there is something that's there, that's going on.
Correct.
But it's my job as a practitioner to see
No,
the
it's your
kernel of
job.
that
It's your
person
job
is
as
and help them through whatever that situation
it's
is.
your job as a practitioner to first see what's there, to deal with what's there with the client, to make them comfortable with what's going on. And then when you step into treatment, this is a misnomer with Ernest Holmes. Ernest Holmes says, in treatment, turn entirely away from the condition. In treatment, that's after you've talked about it, you've noticed it, you've identified it. So when he says the greatest healer is the one that will not see anything to heal, he's talking about, or we now understand what is meant by that for us, How do you look at these things? Do you buy into the relative? Did Marilyn buy into the relative when they told her? She did on step 6. On step 5, she was good. And that's kind of the way the mind's gonna work. On step 5, I'm having a problem on a staircase, by the way, not the steps of treatment. And then on step 6, I'm all fearful again. That's who you're looking at. That's what our minds do. As a practitioner, we must deal with all of it. God is in the chemo. God is in the vomit.
Exactly.
God is in all of it. Diane, you had a question.
Yes, I just lost my best friend to fourth stage ovarian cancer. And she was the epitome of what you describe as the I don't know what you'd call it, the healer. I mean, positive, clear that yes, there is a very small percentage who survived, and I am one of them. There's
Right,
no
right.
question whatsoever in her mind.
Right.
And I lost her just 3 weeks ago. I don't know what to do with that in terms of this.
What we're saying.
Yes.
Okay, Suzanne.
There is in my mind, knowing that that our lives are eternal. There is a time when we move on. It does not mean that the perfection that she is, that the consciousness that she is gone. It has moved to another level. And as difficult as that is for those of us who are left behind, it does not mean that the journey of that individual, that soul, is over. I feel that. I know that from the number of transitions that I've been present at, and I've lost everyone in my family, and been the one that's there with them. And my experience with being present at those transitions is one of the things that has solidified my belief in the eternality of spirit. It is one of the most profound lessons in my life, because recognizing, holding the hand of, in my case, my mother at one point, and in an instant, there was almost almost an audible sound, like a ping, when the spirit left the body. And it still gives me chills, because I knew in that instant, I couldn't cry over that body that was there, my mother, who I loved, because I wasn't her anymore. She'd moved on. And I felt, was I sad? Because I missed her? Yeah. But that's part of my basis of faith in the eternality of who we are. And that has no sting for me. Was I with her? Did I go through 8 years of illness with her? Yes, and recognized it and helped in every way that I could. I do not and would never deny whatever illness that someone is going through, but I can continue to know the truth and to retain my consciousness at that time. Now, it was her time to move on, so I let go.
So Suzanne, teachable moment here. Diane, does that answer give you anything that you were looking for?
I understand, cognitively, what you said, Suzanne. My issue is it somehow, what happened to my friend Norma is contradictory to what this teaching says.
Right. And so Suzanne's answer basically said, sometimes it's a person's time to go. and we need to, or Suzanne processed it for herself. She didn't have that much regret or anything because she suddenly realized it in a spiritual context. So she didn't have the pain. She didn't have the emotions of that. And we just have to learn that it's people's time to go. She's not incorrect. That is a correct answer. However, it's not the answer to the question you asked, because the question you asked was, in the face of everything we're saying here, how is it that my friend died when she was so sure she was going to live? And we're talking about the mind healing the body.
Correct.
Correct.
Just exactly as Marilyn. I mean, she was another Marilyn.
Right, exactly. So that's the question that was asked, Suzanne. And that's the question that we have to answer, not from a place of telling people they have to be okay with the fact that people die,
That's not what
but
I
that,
meant.
no, I know that, but it sounds like that. And we have to be so careful when we answer questions like this, because that's, and all of you that are interested in becoming a practitioner, sometimes the information we have can be rude and can be cold in giving it, even what we know. I mean, I had a 19-year-old daughter die, and if someone had said to me, sometimes it's people's time to move on, I would have slugged them at that point. Hearing that, that's not what I was ready to hear. So we have to understand that. But what's the science behind this? What's the truth behind this? Actually, ironically, it is what Suzanne said. Now, we can never step back far enough to know why someone's time is their time. And it's the people who are left behind that that are most impacted by an untimely death, or certainly a death by someone who has absolutely said, I will fight this, I will win. Do we believe that mind can keep us here? Well, read Dying to Be Me, by Anita Marjani. You'll find out that when she gets to the point where she's just about to cross the threshold, she says, I'm not done. She comes back, tumors disappear. It's a miracle. Except she now travels the world letting us know it's not a miracle, it's a decision.
Yeah.
So I don't know Norma, but I do know that if she did make her transition, there was a part of her somewhere towards the end that just decided in that moment, you know, and we don't even know what that's going to look like, what she maybe saw in those last days that just said, oh my God, I feel more expansive. When I read Anita's book and I see what it felt like to her, and she was like, it's so expansive. And I think about this with my daughter. I'm like, did Nora pass over the threshold and go like, oh my God, it's everything they said it was. It's love. I'm feeling big. I'm the entire universe. And then say, I think I'm good here. Because if she did, when I get there, I'm going to give her a word about that. Because I think she should have said, take me back. My father's really, really in pain. But that's me. That's my life, and I get it. And it's hard. It's really hard. And that's the only answer we can give to that question, because I haven't been there. I don't know what Norma ultimately finally decided. But it doesn't stop me from believing that my mind can heal my body and I am at choice at all times, even in death. So that is what we teach. How's that, Diane?
I can accept that because there are other people in my life who made decisions, as you are indicating, that
Yeah.
no, it's not my time. Michael's mom was run over by a truck at the age of 96.
Oh my God.
Why?
And her dog died immediately. She was walking her dog, and there she is in the hospital. And as we talked to her, etc., she said, no, I'm not going yet. And
And
that
she stayed.
and she stayed.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And
Sonia?
yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think I've said it before in this class. One of my favorite quotes by Joel Goldsmith is, "Life is nothing more but a parenthesis in eternity." And so, if we know and can come to a truth and an understanding that we are spiritual beings first, living in a physical environment, and yes, we have the choice whether to stay in this physical environment or not stay in this physical environment. And like Dr. James said, maybe perhaps when you see, because I've read Anita Morjani's book, which is fantastic, when you when the way she describes that other dimension, I wouldn't want to come back either. It'd be like it's like
Right?
living in a
Yeah.
love bath. She says it's like taking a love bath with three-dimensional, like, 360-degree colors and sounds and everything love. And like, who would want to come? Like, if we know that that's where we are from, that's where we are, and then we are birthed into the physical and then leave the physical and go back to that.
Mhm.
It takes a little of the sting, at least for me in my own personal grief.
Yeah.
It takes the sting of that grief away because I I can meet, like, for me and my mother, I can meet her where she is rather than trying to bring her into my dimension to meet me where where I am. When I try and bring her into my dimension in my thoughts, I experience grief and pain. To me, that's
Mhm.
what pain, that's what grief is. Grief is when you're trying to bring somebody who's no longer in this consciousness, but through your memory, bringing in their old dimensional self, their old physical self back into your consciousness.
Right.
That's where the pain of grief is. But if you can meet them where they are,
Well,
not
Donia, I'm gonna blow that all out of the water right
go
now
for it. Okay.
because on a quantum level, there is no there and here.
Yes.
So let me say this. And you also said something else that I'm gonna disabuse you of
Okay.
as you move forward in your practitioner studies, so that you never have to have me correct you again. There's no spiritual experience and human experience. It's one experience. There, we are not spiritual beings having a human experience or human beings having a spiritual. All that is just a bunch of crap from a dualistic society that still exists, of course. We are divine spiritual human beings. I am a divine human being. And the human experience is just as amazing as we have to stop thinking of heaven as this, it's all going to be so much better there. How do we know? And what if there is no there there? Who said that? Some big poet. There's no there there. There's just here. And every dimension happens simultaneously in a quantum world where everything is collapsed. And we just don't get that yet. Science does. But we're still sitting back in the 1800s believing that, there's a beautiful heaven waiting for us. This is heaven. And your mother is right there with you right now. She's not in some other dimension. Nora is right here in this room with me right now. She's always, and I'm wherever she is because there's no space. So when we really get that, we start teaching this. That's why I wish that every one of my practitioners had taken the consciousness studies class, because after 40 weeks of this, we are all just like flying from understanding science in such a masterful way that we can actually apply it to this teaching. So you never have to say you're having a spiritual experience in a human body again, because you are a divine body, Donia Oxford. And so it is. Do you guys ever take a break?
Well, yeah,
Not
we
when
can.
you're
It's like
here.
8:30, but we can take a break.
Normally.
What did you say? What did you say, Swan? I was about to go to you and go, Swan,
Normally.
you're so quiet. I don't ever remember you this quiet.
Oh, I get quiet. I like to let things occur.
Well, you must have had thoughts tonight. What are they? Because they're probably.
Well, I have so many thoughts about so many different things. I had a teacher in Santa Cruz who legally was medically dead for 5 whole minutes. He overdosed in the 90s on caffeinated beverages because he was working too hard,
Oh my gosh.
and his heart stopped. And he tells the story to all of his classes, and he teaches algorithmic music making. He's a very eccentric, strange man, but he died. He was dead. And he said it was like black velvet. He said there was no obligation. This was his personal experience. He since, talked to other, so everybody sort of has, based on your own like life sort of consciousness, your own sort of flavor of your near death or death-like experience, etc. And so he describes it for himself as black velvet, no obligations, no sense of ego, no tethers, no responsibilities, that freedom. So it's extremely attractive. Like, and you forget your ego, you forget. And then he was given this opportunity, the way he describes it, to astrally float and he recognizes an ambulance, and he recognizes that he's inside this ambulance, and he watches paramedics try to bring him back to life, and he sees his wife, like, and she's sobbing. And in that realization, that's when it like slapped him back awake. Like that's how he tells his story. So, and that's a little slippery because then we think of our own loved ones and, well, why didn't they see us crying? You know, why, like, it's not quite that black and white. And I hope nobody's taking that away from this story, but it's just the way that he tells that story is, it's comforting sort of in a way. And I have a lot to say about death and stuff, but maybe that's enough for right now. Cause I think
No,
people
that
have
was
to go
that.
to
People have to go to the bathroom. Okay, so should we take 5 minutes?
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
Wasn't anything deliberate, I assure you.
Oh, no. I know. I'm just saying it was kind of weird. It kind of like went blank on me for a while.
Oh.
No, I think your brother took it personal that you just didn't want to be in his class.
Yeah, true. We should tell him that. We should say that's the reason. No, I didn't even know he was going to be in the class.
It was a surprise guest.
Yeah. Well, he's always surprised.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
always surprised. Yeah. So are we on a break right now? Is that what's happening?
We're coming back from a break. I've just stopped the pause. We're back.
I've been listening, although I've been also.
Well, I think Ray is here too, although we can't see him.
Starting a new job, and so it's been.
Hi, Ray.
Crazy with that.
There he is.
I think I'm Mr. Zoom today. I've been on Zoom for like 10 hours.
Oh my gosh.
What'd you do?
So Ray, what are you thinking about all this? I can't hear you.
Okay.
A little more.
All right, just a minute. I got to go back and reset this. I don't know why this keeps doing it to me. All right, that ought to boom.
There you go.
Yeah, okay. I haven't been trying to think too hard.
You've been trying to think too hard? Oh, I think he froze.
I still have my St. Patrick's Day tree up.
Christy?
Oh,
I got to change it.
Oh, sorry, Craig. Go ahead.
No, I was saying I had my St. Patrick's Day tree still up. I need to change it to 4th of July.
Love it. That's so great.
Cinco de Mayo today.
It's in my front window. I make it my celebration tree. So now it's going to be like Memorial Day, 4th of July. It's going to be American next.
Okay. All right.
And then I'm not sure about August. We'll have to see what happens in August.
Okay.
What is this thing that you've never shared with me? Tell me later offline. We don't have a lot of time left.
Christy, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just really briefly, something that came up through all of this, and that's something I've been having to learn in Prac 1 and just in general, because these are the first classes I've ever taken in Science of Mind was this past year. So for me, empathy and empathy throughout this idea of mind, spiritual mind treatment and all of that, and recognizing when you are being too empathetic, knowing how to pull back, understanding how to translate or transmute, let go of empathy and fill it with compassion. Be compassionate but not empathetic. That just came into mind while we were talking, because that's a big one. A lot of people are empathetic and don't even know it, and I didn't even know I was being that way in situations and giving over myself to situations that weren't healthy. So that ties in with this whole what Diane was talking about with her friend, and we put our feelings out, but we have to really pull back and recognize the truth of how we are in our bodies and how our minds are taking in the information that we're taking in. I getting a little
Christy, just to let you know, Diane was not being empathetic in any of her story.
okay.
Because for her to be empathetic, she'd have to put herself in her friend's shoes.
Right.
She was talking about missing her and misunderstanding or not understanding how the science of mind reacts to that.
Got
which
it.
I thought was very clear. But I'd love to ask
That says something
Gayla.
about me.
No, yeah, Gayla, since you haven't said much tonight.
Yes.
What is empathy?
Sharing someone's understanding where someone's feelings are coming from or what they're feeling, and being able to explain it back. That's
see. Now see, that is sympathy. And compassion also has that. Empathy is literally taking on the feelings of someone else. You know, when someone says you're an empath, you take on the feelings.
Right.
So with that in mind, why would empathy not be a good quality for a practitioner?
Because you shouldn't be putting yourself in the place of wherever their hurt or their issue is or anything like that. You should be looking at them as perfect.
Right. So exactly right. So if I'm empathetic, now remember, what is treatment? A movement of energy. What is empathy? Taking your energy as my own energy. So if I'm going to be empathetic, how much good am I going to be for you in actually removing myself from the situation and knowing the truth when I'm actually taking your energy on? So that's why we don't use empathy in the world of spiritual mind treatment. We don't even use sympathy. Sympathetic also kind of puts people in as victims. When you're very sympathetic, you're kind of acknowledging their stuff, and a lot of times sympathy, I think sympathy was built in the South when everybody was just really trying so hard to be nice. And compassion, however, compassion is what you just described, Gayla, in the beginning. Compassion is having unconditional love for someone and their situation, but understanding it. So that's compassionate. The compassionate heart is someone that understands what you're going through. I do understand it. I can see when someone's hurt. I can understand what they're going through. And I have compassion and great compassion for that. And I used to not like compassion either because people confuse sympathy, empathy, and compassion. In fact, in year 2 of practitioner studies, there's an entire 2 weeks on sympathy, empathy, and compassion. 3 weeks, I'm sorry, sympathy, empathy, compassion. I used to not like compassion because it didn't work for me because it was confused with sympathy and empathy until I heard the Dalai Lama give a whole lecture on compassion. And I went, well, if that's compassion, I'm all for it. There's detachment involved. There is wisdom involved. There is understanding involved. And there is unconditional love involved in compassion. So that's what a practitioner has, great compassion. And thus ends my lecture. For
Ray,
now.
Ray, you were going to say something earlier.
Hello, Ray. I didn't even see you.
Yeah, he's been very quiet.
You have to unmute, Ray.
There we go.
There you go.
My internet keeps dropping out, everything resets and boom, boom. I don't know. That's what I was lost last week. I don't know what's going on with my local service. So anyways, I'm not sure what I was ready to contribute to the discussion earlier.
Oh,
But I do click with that discussion on compassion. And I always thought the first step to compassion was being present in an unjudgmental way. And when you're present in that unjudgmental situation, then you offer that presence to, whether it needs understanding or support or whatever, not what you think that individual needs or wants, but what you can perceive that individual really thinks that they want or need that you can support.
Cool. That's cool, Ray.
okay. Sharon, did you have
Sharon,
a
yeah.
question?
Well, I was just thinking about the whole compassionate sympathy, empathy, and I feel like you can use empathy before you treat to really kind of get at the root of what's happening.
I can see that. I would question why you would want to.
So like maybe you see someone that's really angry and they have health issues, and it's kind of maybe an out picturing of all of it is kind of out picturing of, I think if you're using empathy, you could get at the root of what is the real issue. It's not the anger, but it's the belief, or the, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You could use it more as a diagnostic tool, kind of in the beginning, to understand, oh, it's really this belief that they have that is causing these things.
But
The way you're describing it, I have no question with. You're
right.
not describing empathy, though. I think the very thing you just said is exactly what a practitioner needs to do, which is to understand where they're coming from, to definitely be, as Ray said, non-judgmental, fully unconditionally loving. I personally don't believe, and I certainly Ernest Holmes didn't either, that I have to feel what you're feeling to understand the truth, or to even find the core belief that you're looking at. In fact, I'll probably be quicker at finding your core belief if I haven't taken on your energy, because I'll understand it better.
Well, I'm thinking of teachings from, I know I'm thinking on her name, people that are, I can't, what is that lady's name?
Not Marianne Williamson.
No, not Marianne Williamson, but another.
Brene Brown.
Brene Brown?
Brene Brown.
No. She's a
Good.
medical intuitive people that can really say.
Carolyn Miss.
Oh, Carolyn Miss.
Yeah.
I love Carolyn Miss.
Yes. So she's a medical intuitive, right?
Yeah.
But intuitive is not empath.
Can I say something real quick?
You still feel it in your body.
Hold on, I want to.
Okay. Yeah.
No, intuitive, because I know Carolyn. I've actually been in programs with her where we've both been speakers. To my knowledge, she's not talking about taking on your feelings. It's the intuitive. When we talk intuitive, there's a difference between intuitive and psychic. Psychic relates on the relative plane. So I'm dealing with everyone's subjective mind, and I can be psychic and know what someone's thinking, and I can be, because there's only one mind. But that's on the relative plane. And intuitive is getting the information from a higher level of consciousness. It's more of the mystical, which is
Okay.
what Carolyn's all about. And
Mm.
that intuitive does not need to go on the relative plane to understand what's going on inside of a body. So I can't say for sure that she doesn't consider herself an empath, but I know when she
Mhm.
talks about the intuitive, the medical intuitive, it's about understanding it from a much higher level of consciousness. It's not because empathy is on the relative plane.
Mhm. Okay.
But thank you, because now I'm going to look that up. I really am. And I
Yeah.
will get back to you. I'll if I'm not here next week, I'll give it to Suzanne to tell you what I found.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, like I have a friend that she's like, oh, I feel like a burning in your like solar plex area. So I think you're not stepping forward, or you know what I mean.
That
Uses
sounds
it.
like someone who thinks they're an empath or who
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
feels a burning in your, do you feel the burning when she feels the burning, or is she giving that
Yeah.
burning to you?
Yeah. No, I think she feels it in her body and uses it to diagnose
Mm,
kind of
Hmm.
yeah,
what.
not what we do, not what we do in
No.
Science of Mind, but
Yeah.
I've come to the point in my life where I used to be, Suzanne knows, Suzanne had me as a teacher in early days, like 20 years ago. And I was very much like Suzanne is now. I read from the book. I pretty much taught what's on the page. And I was so anti psychics, anti channelers. I was like, none of that's real. And I am just not there anymore. Tiffany's very happy about that. I'm just not there anymore because how do I know? I don't really know. So now I say to myself, yay for the psychics, yay for the intuitives, yay for well, I'm very much into the intuitives, yay for the channelers, just not my field of expertise and also not my field of interest, to be
Mhm.
honest. So, but that's so funny because I'm already in my head, I'm already sitting with Carolyn at coffee in the mornings of our conference, and I just don't know that we ever talked about that. Now I'm like, I probably have her number in my
I give her
phone.
a call. Yeah.
I may call her and say, this student Sharon brought you up in class, and tell me, do you consider, I am going to call her and ask her. Maybe I'll have it right from the horse's mouth next week.
Yeah, I'd love to know.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for bringing that up. Diane?
Okay, when you say that's not what science of mind thinks or believes or does, are you speaking for science of mind, or I have the sense that your interpretation or take on science of mind may be quite unique and different from the mainstream science of mind. So
Yes, I will tell you. My take on science of mind is probably way more, and Tiffany, back me up here, is probably way more conservative than where a lot of people have taken science of mind. In fact, I'm much more about the absolutism of Ernest Holmes than all the conjecturing and all the things like the 7-step treatments that have taken us away from the genius of that man. So, is it unique in that respect? Probably, because there are people channeling in Science of Mind churches all over the country. Now, Ernest Holmes also he wrote a book in 1927 called The Science of Mind. You don't have that book, 1926. You don't have that book. You have the 1932 book that was revised, and they took everything out about channeling. And I mean, he wrote about all that stuff. He was into all of it. He took it all out, or he let them take it all out because people were interested in the all that stuff, that magic stuff, and he wanted one thing to be made clear. Nothing is as powerful as your mind.
Right.
And that's where I am. That's where I take religious science. And Ernest Holmes also said, if you're still teaching, he didn't say it this way, but I like to say it this way. Ernest Holmes said, if he were me, if you're still teaching this crap 50 years from now, you missed the point of what I was trying to say in the first place. And here we are almost 100 years later, and some people are still teaching the same book. What he wanted us to do was take what he understood and grow it as we evolved. And we have evolved into quantum physics, which is actually answering many of the questions, improving many of the theories that Ernest Holmes spouted with no proof whatsoever. You had to just feel it. Well, we don't have to just feel it anymore. Now we can actually dive into science and go, no, it's actually happening. This is what the particles are doing. This is what's beyond the particles. This is what the space is between the particles, where we find natural intelligence. So that's I'm excited about, Diane, where I'm taking it. But I actually think I'm probably more in alignment with Ernest Holmes and what he expected of his teaching than most religious science churches. And I don't mean that egotistically. I mean it excitedly that we are going places that, and a lot of churches are following now too, by the way. They're like, yeah, this all makes sense.
Ray?
Yeah, you bring up the quantum mechanics thing and being an electrical engineer and taking modern physics and my history and all that. Anyways, I could go into a lot of crap, but my core question is on what you're talking about. Are you really exploring cause, or are you really exploring effect?
What are you talking about when we're talking about quantum physics?
Yeah.
Quantum physics is a study of cause.
Okay, that'd be interesting to see how you figure that.
No, biology, Newtonian physics, what dealt with the world of form, dealt with effect. It was all about the physical world. Quantum physics is all about what's causing it all.
It's about the small particle physics, just like in solid state physics when we used to calculate boundary conditions and light emissions from orbit changes and spin changes.
But
And
see, that was still dealing with the physical world. It's still
well,
about the
that's fine.
particles. For this, it's not about the particles so much as it's about what's in the particle. And for us, it's like, let's stop teaching treatment. Let's teach why treatment works, where it comes from. You get that
Oh,
feeling, and then we'll be doing what Jesus did. Stand still and let someone just walk into your energy field and they are feeling the vibration of pure truth. That's who we have to become. And where does that
there,
come from?
yeah, there's a ions thing out that's talking about the interaction of intention and is it a particle? I'm
Yeah,
not
did
sure.
you the New York Times article?
I don't know about that, but ions has had a lot of that. I
Yeah.
remember we used to have conferences with Edgar Mitchell, and he was big on quantum mechanics. And I've had a couple glasses of wine. Well, I had one glass of wine over that discussion with him.
Yeah, because if you had a couple, then I can't trust anything you've said
I know.
with him.
I'm not sure you could trust anything I said anyway. So what's the difference? It
Cool.
sounds good to
Thank
me.
you.
So that's all because
No.
sounds good to me. So that's all that counts.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing that up. And it is where we're going. And back to you, Suzanne.
Oh, okay.
9:02. Do you guys finish at 9 or 9:30?
9.
9. Oh wow. Ah, that's so
Well,
good. None of my classes. My one class is 2.5 hours. The other one's 3 hours.
yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, for some of these we've already gone through. I mean,
Yeah, I'd throw out the book. Throw out the rest of that book. Let's just talk about what did you get from tonight?
yeah.
Right, Tiffany? We throw out books all the time in advanced consciousness. It's like, throw that one out. It's not working. Let's go to the next one.
Well, I don't feel badly then about throwing Troward.
You know what, Diane? Here's the thing. I am going to be teaching a class called Troward in 20. And you're going to take it because you're going to find out what Troward's really about. I do it 5 days a week in the morning. It's Tiffany's favorite way of learning Troward. I think you took it too, Suzanne. 20 minutes in the morning. It's only 20 minutes of Troward 5 days a week. So in those 5 days of 20 minutes, you've gotten a full class. But you've lived it the whole week, and they're small, and you really get to understand what Thomas Troward was saying.
Sounds like root canal.
What, Craig?
Sounds like root canal.
Well, you're going to take it too, my friend. So yeah. Don't do the sign of the cross. We're not in Catholic school
I thought that
anymore.
would throw you off. Just...
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Oh, well,
So
I do.
Suzanne, yeah, what did you get tonight? Anybody, what did you get tonight?
Hmm.
Besides that Tiffany doesn't talk nearly as much as I do.
Yeah.
You didn't give her a chance.
She knows better. So anybody, what did you get? What yeah.
Nancy.
I came up with a question during the break. Do you think race consciousness has something to do with how we experience death? Have we as a collective come up with this idea of how we have to do it? Because we all know of people who have sat down in a barca lodger watching TV and just not wakened, or have gone around and said goodbye to everybody and just bought a new pair of silk pajamas and gone to bed and left. So how much of that is, I mean, I want to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, I think I would love to buy a pair of silk pajamas and fall asleep at a barca lounger and call it a day. That sounds almost lovely. So
Yeah.
long as the barca lounger is pointed towards the ocean and I'm watching the sunset or something, can't be it. So what I really think is that, yeah, you too, Nancy, you know what I've always said. I want to die at like 120 on a beach with my loved ones around me and just say goodbye. Just say goodbye and close my eyes and go. And so that's what I'm knowing for myself.
Okay.
And that means Kevin's, if I'm 120, Kevin's 113.
There you go.
But he'll probably look older than me.
Well, listen, you made a decision that you weren't going to lose your hair, and look how that worked out.
But I'm not in charge of that because there's a higher part of me that knows what's best for me as well. So race consciousness. Race consciousness is involved in our lives to the degree that we allow it in. We're a part of race consciousness. Race consciousness exists right here in this room. There's a race consciousness about this room right now. And we're impacted by it at all times. So have we bought into death? We have. We have bought into what it means. We've bought into aging.
Mm-hmm.
Think about our grandparents. I'm 66 years old. I don't remember having a grandparent my age who looked like me, acted like me, or had the energy that I have.
Right.
I mean nobody. But I don't buy into that, and I won't buy into that. So I think you are absolutely right, and we have to be on guard for the race consciousness that informs us to the degree that we act from it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, I do. I totally do, Nancy. I absolutely. And Ernest Holmes teaches race consciousness is right there in the subjective state.
Yeah.
And it affects us at all times. All of our core beliefs, when Suzanne was saying earlier about all that stuff, they're core beliefs that she's talking about.
Yeah.
We all have them. I don't know how old you are, Sharon, or I think I know how old Swan is. So as many years as you've lived on this planet, your core beliefs that you've built up are driving the way your life is moving. That's all that's doing it. You start at your belief. I know you love this part, Tiffany. You start at the belief. It creates the way you think, your thoughts. Your thoughts create your feelings create your emotions. And if you want to know what's going on, back it up. You're feeling like this. What was I just thinking? Why do I think that? Find the belief. Do I want to believe that? Very often the answer is no. I don't want to believe that. I don't want to believe that I'm going to have to grow old and get crotchety and I won't be able to walk and all that stuff. No, I don't want to believe that. So start not believing it. Start believing something else.
Isn't there also a race consciousness to the stigma that we put around death? Because I mean, I understand that grief is the love, right? Like we grieve because we love, and it's there's a loss, but that loss is really also perception. And there's a race consciousness to, like, people being afraid of death and afraid of funerals, but really, like, it's the most natural. It's what happens to everyone at some point. So I've always kind of found it interesting that we have such a fear of it, and there's so much negativity around it, and yet in so many ways it's much more natural than winning the lottery. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the odds are greater.
There's a race consciousness around it being this negative bad thing that if we changed our perception about it, maybe it wouldn't be the negative thing that it is.
There are cultures that actually celebrate and party
Yes.
when there's a death.
Yes.
Irish people.
Yes.
New Orleans,
People with,
they have
with many libations, yes.
They bring food to them in their houses. You
Oh
know,
my
in these
God.
cultures where they just keep them going till they're
Every
the
death in
bone.
our family growing up was a party waiting to happen. And very often the party happened around the casket. Because back in the old day, believe it or not, they would have the casket put in the house.
Yeah.
The body would go out, it would come back, and I remember I was like 6 years old when my mom and dad took me to my grandmother's house, and there was my Uncle Huzzy. Remember that? Oh, you didn't, Craig. I was 6. You weren't even born yet. And we went back to the house, and I remember walking in, and there he was. Not Huzzy, it was a different uncle, laying in the coffin. And I was like, "What the hell? What?" And but they were just like, "You guys go off and play. Play? I'm traumatized for life. There's a dead body here." But they're having beers and they're like clinking their glasses on the casket. It's like, yeah, he lived a great life.
I just posted a photo on Facebook of someone who died. They stuffed his they not stuffed his body, but he was a drummer, and so at the funeral they had him in the position as if he were playing. They set the drum. Literally, he was not in a casket. He was at the drum kit, but he was dead. But he was like this.
Wow.
Well,
And that's in a yellow suit, in a bright yellow suit with a funky hat, and his relatives wanted him to go out that way. So
we don't do funerals. In Science of Mind, we don't do funerals. We do celebrations of life. And if anybody was at Tiffany's father's funeral, that was the most audacious, disrespectfully wonderful funeral ever. Ever. I've never been at a funeral where a man's penis size was discussed. I mean, really. Right? Am I right? And it was discussed. And he did apparently. And it was discussed by his grandson, who was how old, Tiffany? How old was your son?
10, 11?
Yeah. And he just said something his grandfather said to him, and I was sitting next to Tiffany, and Tiffany's hand just like grabbed my knee. I was like, it's going to be fine. Just let him keep talking. And it was the funniest funeral I've ever been to, but it brought so much solace. I think it was the first time I'd seen Tiffany smile in a week or two since the whole thing. And, so that we're getting better. We're getting better at it. And you know why? Because we're understanding it better, I think.
Yeah.
So, oh my guys, I know we've kept you here longer than you're used to.
That's wonderful.
We're preparing you for year 2 when you step into my class and you're all talking and like, I don't agree, because my motto is question everything and often. You can't stump me. And I even change my mind rarely, but I do change my mind. I mean, I'm going to have to come back to Sharon and say, you were right. Carolyn Mist is an empath, and she just talked me into it. Now I'll see what she does.
Oh, no.
We'll see what she
That
does.
would be radical.
Could you imagine if I had to come back and tell everybody now, let's relook at empathy? I would have the entire Global 2 Center would be like, no, there are some things that we rely on.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part, though, because this is not the man that taught my Prac 1 class. Like, back then it was no compassion. And I was the one that was like, why do we have to read this? And he'd be like, you have to know it. You have to read it. So you've come a long way, sir.
Oh, yeah. You should have been there 20 years ago.
Yeah. We have to. Go ahead.
And I look the same, Christy.
I believe it. No, I just looked up cognitive empathy, and I think that's where my mind was. I didn't connect it up with what you were saying correctly, but cognitive empathy is a little different than the other empathy, and there are different kinds of empathy and the way people process, which is another type of empathy. So that was.
Well, when you become a practitioner, we will let you teach a Saturday workshop on all the different forms of empathy. I'll sit in the back of the room and shoot like BB guns at you.
That's fine. That's fine. We'll have Peter's empathy.
That's right. Sorry, Suzanne.
God.
Class is out of control.
Now, I think since we were fortunate enough to have you as our guest for this entire evening, that it was only appropriate if you would treat us out.
Oh, I would love to. I would love to. All right, everybody. Take a deep breath and just relish in everything that's happened here this evening. Your questions, your answers, your shock, your dismay, your excitement, your passion, whatever happened. Just let it all just fall away to this perfect, perfect place of pure potentiality. For at the end of the day, all there ever is one thing going on, and that is this infinite, divine, beautiful, creative flow of energy. It's who I am, it's what I am, it's in the mountains, the trees, the stars above me tonight. It is everywhere present, it's everywhere I look, it's in the eyes of a baby, it's in the gurgle of a child, it's in a dolphin as it jumps out of the ocean, it is in the squirrels that run in and out of the trees. It's everywhere present. And all of that energy, that's who I am, that's what I am. And I know that for myself. I know it for Suzanne, Christy, Donia, Tiffany, Diane, Nancy, Marilyn, Swan, Ray, Craig, and Sharon. God operating perfectly through and as each one, knowing that that is greatness on demand at all times, no matter what. And I give great thanks for everything that was shared here this evening, for every mind that questioned, for every question that was answered, and for every answer that was then again questioned, allowing this continuous flow of life and momentum to keep growing and expanding and knowing. Infinite wisdom as each student, as each teacher, as the student becomes the teacher, as the teacher becomes the student. I am so grateful for all of it, this whole play of life upon itself. And so with that, I give great gratitude to Reverend Suzanne for taking this ship and sailing it so beautifully into these uncharted waters, knowing that they are always going to find their way home to the absolute truth that right where I am, God is. All of it. The entire ocean in a drop. The whole enchilada in the meal. Knowing that this is so, with such gratitude in my heart, I just release my word as law, knowing that my word is the word of God, for it is my word. And the law says yes, for I say yes. And I just get out of the way. And please, with me, proclaim. And so it is.
So it is.
Have a
Lovely.
great evening, everyone, and thank you for letting me come in and derail the class for a little bit.
It's quite all right. And I'll figure out what, if any, homework I send you and let Tiffany know.
Thank you. Great class.
Yes.
Thank you, James.
My
Thank you,
pleasure,
everybody.
Suzanne.
Love you. Have a
Bye.
great week.
Nice to meet you, Sharon.
Nice meeting you too. Thanks.
Yes.
Enjoyed it.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Swan.
Bye.
Bye, Diana.
We're not gonna get, oh, she's not there now. Okay.